Hey guys, how's it going? Remember that one time when I was supposed to do a Whiteknights recap on video? Yeah, yeah. So what I ended up having was, I did film it, but I ended up having like 35 minutes of footage, and obviously that needed to be cut down, but I still talked too much, so I decided to redo it, and it's taken so long because I've had finals and stuff. Also, the light in my room burned out, and maintenance decided, hey, let's not fix this for days. So yeah, that was fun sitting in the dark every night because I didn't have a light, also couldn't film. So yes, please enjoy this new film complete with adornments. Look at, wow, much decor, such glam. So before I start, spoiler alert, slash warning, slash whatever you want to call this. If you cannot take any constructive criticism or criticism of your team, or you feel that I'm attacking you, or anything like that, stop watching this video now. Don't, because I don't say anything mean, but people in the Quidditch community tend to take things in a less than cordial way when there is any amount of criticism towards their team. And don't even deny it because it's true. Quidditch is one of the most sensitive groups that I have ever had the experience of being a part of. So if you cannot take any sort of criticisms or anything, please just click the X in the corner of your browser or on the tab or whatever and just close this video. Alright, so I'm going to start off by going through the team's strengths and weaknesses, standout players, etc., and then talk about just the tournament in general, and then finally how it compares to American Quidditch, because I've been asked by multiple people an awful lot, how do things compare to back home? So the first team I'd like to talk about is Southampton, who were clearly the best team at the tournament. Just overall better than all the other teams. Defense was very good, defensive beating was good, and just chaser defense as well. They were much more likely to get physical than some of the other teams at the tournament, and it definitely gave them an edge when making stops in the keeper zone in the open field. They also had players like Simon Bidwell and Dugald making big runs down the field basically all day. Clearly some of the best players in the UK right there. Very good at the fast break and just moving quickly around people. Also shout out to Ellie, I can't say your Norwegian last name because you've yet to pronounce it for me, for doing very well at Seeker. Despite her size, she's incredibly persistent and has gotten tons of grabs. Definitely, I think, a candidate for Team UK. So yeah, Southampton was basically the best team at the tournament. I didn't have a lot of criticisms for them. I got to ref them once against one of the weaker teams, and I got to watch them in the finals, and both times they seemed to be pretty on top of things, pretty much dominating the game. I can see why they made it very far in the BQC. So the next team up is Chester, who I did not see a whole lot of, but they did have very good defense and definitely good defensive beating, just the same as Southampton, just a little less so, I guess. Shout out to Dale Cook for definitely doing major work in the beating core, working really hard to hold things together with that team. Another thing about Chester is that they were always ready for the fast break, always looking as soon as they had the opportunity to just streak down the field and put it through the hoops, which does a lot in the UK if you can recognize those types of situations. So good job to Chester for being able to capitalize on that. Otherwise, I didn't really see them a whole lot, so I don't have a whole lot to say about them. So I did also get to play against Reading, and I will say that Reading also did well in the defensive beating. However, it was effective only, I feel, because we were on a narrow pitch, which I will get to that in a little bit later in the video about how narrow the pitch was. And really, I feel that Reading's beaters were the only thing that held them in the game, our game against London, because once you got past the beaters, it was basically like hot knife through butter getting through their chaser line. They weren't too physical, they weren't making a whole lot of stops, and someone with moderate speed and agility could just kind of go right through them. And put it through the hoops. I will say that Seeking is definitely one of their strong suits, though. Nicole Stone, recently of World Cup 7 fame as Little Snitch, who is Seeking Extraordinaire, Snitch Core Training Person of the... I don't even know her actual title, but she's all about that Snitch life. And she is a very good seeker, like Ellie from Southampton, very persistent. I think Nicole's got a little more power behind her as well, and some more agility, so it's kind of like a double-edged sword. Definitely a seeker that snitches will underestimate, and she'll shock you with her talent. While I don't have as many good things to say about Reading's defense, their offense was pretty good, and they definitely also recognized the fast break and utilized it a lot to their ability. The next thing I'd like to talk about at this tournament was the Quirks, and they were an interesting team to me. They were a Merc team consisting of about 8 players, some from Oxford and some other schools, including Costa, Alex Greenhalgh, Ben Morton, Luke Twist, Yan, long Polish name. So many foreign names that I just can't pronounce. This is really embarrassing. Anyways, I think that it was definitely an interesting point of the tournament because these are a bunch of players that only a few had played together. Not a bunch, a few, 8. Like 7 or 8 players. So basically no subs. And they had Luke and Yan, who were incredible chasers, especially in tandem. They played together at Oxford at beater the entire time, a position that they literally never play. And had never played before. I think Yan told me at the tournament he had never even attempted to play beater before this tournament. And basically dominated the competition up until the final run in the bracket when they end up going to overtime with Chester. And this is it goes to show the disparity between teams. I think the tournament was kind of full of lower level, lower tier teams who didn't have as much experience, save for Southampton. And it goes to show that a few high level athletes could really just run through every other team at the tournament. I think this was a good thing too, however, because it shows that the skill level in UK, the ceiling cap was not what Southampton did in the finals, which was pretty good, but not, fantastic, super spectacular, awesome. I would like to give major props to Elizabeth's Norwegian name. I'm so sorry, I don't know how to say your last name. It's like Jorstad or something like that. I'm sorry. Anyway, she played major minutes this tournament. I think she barely subbed out. Played super time at keeper and chaser, and is definitely one of the best players that I have seen in the UK. She was fast, she was always on point, accurate, not afraid to be physical. I saw her playing major minutes at keeper, even though she's not incredibly tall, and still making blocks, still making stops at the hoop. Really, really good player, and I can't wait to see what she does in the coming seasons. Also like to show that there's a major size thing going on in the UK. Not a lot of players are big like in the US, so Costa and Alex, who are two much larger guys than most people, were able to just walk through defenses with people hanging off them, partially because tackling is not as developed in the UK, and partially because they're able to just assert their size and use it to their advantage. So props to them as well. And I'll get to tackling later in this video. So the next team I saw was Falmouth. And I was told that this was their first tournament, so props to you for going to your first tournament and doing pretty well for your first tournament, I must say, especially if you'd never played an official match before. They did pretty well with the beating, and they definitely recognized the fast breaks. They learned how to pass towards a few of the end of their games when they started to formulate a little bit of a strategy. There weren't a lot of standout players on Falmouth. I think the tall beater, I'm sorry I don't know these people's names. The tall beater and the one main chaser were the two standouts on the team who definitely seemed to know what they were doing and have some semblance of a strategy more so than the other players on the team. But as I said, they're in their first tournament, and I guess that's to be expected. So I hope that they can pull some better strategy and athleticism together in the future. Next team I'll talk about is Edinburgh. I got the chance to play them in the bracket. They do their brackets a little different in the UK, so I'm not sure what round it constitutes, but basically the first round of non-pool play. And they were a very timid team. I don't know how much experience they have. It didn't seem that they were very ferocious on the attack, and there wasn't a lot of passing. It was more of just the keeper passing it off to someone on the side and hoping that they could hero ball it in. I don't remember the score of the game, but I think we blew them out. I can't comment on their bludger control because they never had it that entire game. London was playing super conservative that game, which also probably attributed to the shutout. The next game I'll talk about is Norwich. I got to play against Norwich, and they did pretty well. They utilized the fast break a whole lot, but otherwise did not have a ton of strategy. Their beaters were kind of everywhere, just kind of beating Quaffle, beating other people randomly, not really in strategic positioning very much. But I will say they did not get flustered, and they did not lose their heads. They played very methodically. They kept their chin up after every goal scored against them. They played their game and they controlled the game as much as they could, which was, I think, very good and incredibly useful when you play higher level teams. So I think with development, Norwich could be a real threat in the future. And finally, I have to talk about my own team, London. I don't know how much I can say about them. I mean, I played on the team. It was a lot of new people. Only, I think less than half the roster had ever played in a tournament before. Most people had been showing up to practice for less than a month before coming to the tournament. So I think it was a really good experience for them. Just all around needs work, chaser game, beater game, seeker game. But they're still growing, and I think being a community team with a lot of people living in London, they'll probably start attracting a lot of talent once people get out of university, start moving to the city or move back home or wherever it may be. So they're gonna be a powerhouse in the future. So finally, just a few observations for the tournament. Number one, the pitches, and I don't know why this was, but they were not correctly dimensioned. They were small and oddly placed. The place that we were in, the Whiteknights Park, we were behind some building, and there was a large field that we could have put other pitches on or moved the pitches, but instead we put them right next to the building, so they had to be extra small. And there were large concrete slabs and metal grates jutting out of the ground, like on the pitch or right on the boundary of the pitch, which was a major safety issue, and thank God that no one got majorly hurt on any of those or anything. There was also rocks and shale coming out of the ground, and there was a fence and a stone patio nearby that were right next to the pitch. So why they put them there and not somewhere else, I have no idea. The size, as I talked about earlier with Reading's beaters, the one pitch in particular was maybe half the width of all the other pitches, so it made it pretty much impossible when one team got bludger control for anyone to get past, because two bludgers standing next to each other could cover the width of the field like super easily. So that definitely made gameplay frustrating. Another thing was the rules understanding by the players. This was a little bit better than Valentine's Cup, but not very much. I saw a lot of people of, hey, he can't do that, hey, she can't hit there, something, 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 when these were all legal things. A lot of players, I don't think, understand the rules very well and probably need to go and read them. I had reffed a few games, and I had players yelling at me about, this is a back tackle, that's a back tackle. It wasn't a back tackle. I promise you it wasn't a back tackle. I would have called the back tackle. Trust me. Another thing I noticed was reffing consistency. A little bit better than Valentine's Cup, but still needed some work. Some refs good, know the rules, not afraid to call. Other refs, I don't think that they should have been refs. I mean, that's a UK thing in general, is I think the refereeing just needs to be at a higher level, and the more games that are played, I'm sure the more experience that you'll get, the more higher level play that you see, the more experience you're going to get. So hopefully that becomes a thing within the next year. Snitches was another thing, another hit and miss thing. Snitches were... Some were good, some should not have been snitching. And of course, as always, as the American needs to mention, PVC. Please use it. Please. So the segment we've all been waiting for, how does it compare to American Quidditch? I wish I had special effects or something to put it in large letters, make an explosion. UK Quidditch is young. That's, first and foremost, it's young. There has not been a bunch of high-level play for a long time. There has not been a lot of teams for a long time. People are still figuring out their identities, still figuring out strategies. I see a lot with most teams, as I said in the video, a whole lot of fast break offense. Beaters don't really know what they're doing. Strategy is not a major component. It seems to be there's a lot more like just Harry Potter fans who it's fun to play Quidditch rather than athletes. As opposed to American Quidditch that has a lot more athletes. Not to say that Harry Potter fans can't be athletes, but the athletic mean in the UK, I believe, is lower than it is in the US for the average player. All in all, strategy is just less, but I think it's growing, which is a good thing. As time goes on and you play more games, you're gonna see a lot more strategy coming out of teams. And again, as I said earlier, these are probably the lower-ish tiers, plural, of UK Quidditch. I have yet to see Oxford play, or Kiel, or Bangor, and I've heard that they're pretty good, so I would assume that their strategy probably is a bit more developed than the teams that I saw here, especially because a lot of these teams have not gone to very many tournaments. The UK in general can't really tackle very well. I didn't see many good tackles, and certainly not by any players who were small or of moderate stature. Most tackles came from really aggressive, larger players. And most players don't even know what a legal tackle is, as I alluded to earlier, so I think that's part of the problem. So hopefully that will become less of an issue as tackling becomes more prominent and the level of the game steps up. So people ask me, like, how would it compare, like, playing other teams and everything? If I were to take Southampton and put them in the US in a regional or whatever, I'd say they'd probably be 3 or 4 teams behind the final bid for a weaker region. And that's assuming the average amount of bids was like 10 or something like that. So, I know the Midwest bets. If I were to drop Southampton into the Midwest, they'd probably finish around 19th or 20th. They had strategy, they had athleticism, but their physicality would not be able to be matched by some of the more experienced teams, and that's just the long and short of it. The U.S. just has more experience in general. However, I will say that I definitely had a fun time at Whiteknights. It was a great weekend. I met a lot of people. It was a lot of fun. And UK Quidditch is definitely improving and definitely getting somewhere. And I think it's going to explode in just a few years. It's definitely going to grow a lot faster than the U.S. has, and it's probably going to be pretty competitive. So that's all from me. If you have any questions, comment, like, subscribe, things like that. And other than that, that's all I got. Have a good night, everyone.